The front in Sumy Oblast is shifting in favor of Ukraine. Even Russian Z resources admit the Ukrainian armed forces have achieved significant success, pushing the enemy out of previously captured positions. This was reported by the Z Resource Northern Channel associated with the Russian military. According to him, Ukrainian defenders managed to fully restore control over the village of Kondratovka. The situation there is critical for the Russian armed forces. In Sumy Oblast, the Ukrainian armed forces managed to take full control of Kondratovka. The fate of our groups, which were previously surrounded on the southern outskirts, is currently unknown, writes Z Channel. In addition, the situation of the Russian army in the Yunakovka area has worsened. Our forces had to retreat from several positions, and now control of the settlement looks like it's about 50-50, the report says. In the village of Bessalovka, the line of combat contact again coincides with the state border. That is, Russian forces were thrown back to their original positions. Moscow's attempts to advance in the Sumy direction intensified in early summer, but by mid-June, the offensive had stalled. Since then, the front has remained stable until the Ukrainian army began gradually pushing the enemy out of the occupied territories. The Russian armed forces have neither the strength nor the strategy to continue the offensive, and although the situation in the region remains tense, Ukraine is confidently seizing the initiative. Earlier reported that Putin's army is suffering heavy losses in the Sadkov area of Sumy region. Analysts from the Institute for the Study of War have voiced the situation in Sumy region. Putin's army fought in the northern Sumy region in the area of Yunakovka and Kondratovka. At the same time, Ukrainian defenders counterattacked enemy troops in the area of Andreyevka. One of the Russian war correspondents associated with the northern group of Russian forces complained about heavy losses in the ranks of Putin's army. As an example, he spoke about the military actions in the Sadkov area. As it turned out, after the Ukrainian armed forces retreated from Kherson region, Putin's army decided to install minefields there so that the Ukrainian defenders could not return again. As a result, now their own soldiers are being blown up by these mines. Moreover, the second significant reason for the large losses in Sumy region is friendly fire. Not long ago, the occupiers from the 137th Airborne Regiment and the 810th Marine Brigade engaged in a shootout with each other. Putin's army is also having trouble coordinating its own areas of responsibility. Many units are now competing to be the first to capture Kharkiv. Another Z channel wrote that a battalion of Kim's soldiers is moving from Rilsk towards Zvanoy. Allegedly, the North Koreans are now replacing Putin's troops in Kursk so that they have the opportunity to fight on Ukrainian territory. Ukrainian drones carried out a massive attack on several regions of Russia, and two factories important for the Russian military-industrial complex were hit. As Russian publics write, Russians complained about explosions in Nevinomysk, Stavropol Krai, and reported dozens of arrivals. It was claimed that the target of the attack there was the chemical plant Azot. Later, the city mayor showed a video of the plant's territory in the distance and praised the plant workers, thereby indirectly confirming that this enterprise was the target of the attacks. The plant has been attacked by drones for the second time in the last 2 months. It suspended operations in June after an attack. This plant is a major producer of nitrogen fertilizers and ammonia, and is also part of the Eurochem group. Earlier, the media reported that the enterprise supplies nitric acid to the Sverdlov plant in the Nizhny Novgorod region, which is used to produce oxygen and hexogen, which in turn are used for artillery shells. In addition, explosions were heard in the Tambov region. Local telegram channels wrote about an attack on a gunpowder factory in Kotovsk. Later, videos of smoke after strikes in the area of the factory were published. At the same time, there are no official reports of the attack. There were also reports of a massive drone attack in Krasnodar Krai. In Timashevsk, UAV debris fell on the territory of the railway station, leaving it without power supply. In addition, in the Rostov region, local residents wrote about numerous explosions in Taganrog and Novocherkassk. On the night of July the 20th, drones attacked Moscow and the Moscow region, causing fires there. Moscow Mayor Sergei Sobyanin stated that cars caught fire from falling debris and a residential high-rise was damaged. On the night of July the 18th, drones attacked Moscow and Dzerzhinsk. As expert Anatoly Krapchinsky noted, the strikes that Ukraine is carrying out on targets in Russia are aimed not only at hitting the target, but also exert psychological pressure on residents of Russian-populated areas. According to Western intelligence, Russia is working on a satellite with a nuclear warhead. Its unauthorized detonation in orbit could disable hundreds of Western satellites while allowing the Kremlin to maintain plausible deniability. According to Forbes, the goal is to disrupt the operation of American and European satellites, including SpaceX's Starlink, which is critical for Ukraine. An expert on Russian military space programs, Elena Grossfeld from London's King's College, warns that such an explosion in the Earth's radiation belts would create a powerful background that would simply burn out the electronics of many spacecraft. And all this under the pretext of a technical accident. The United States today has an overwhelming advantage in orbit. These are communication satellites, nuclear command satellites, intelligence satellites. For Moscow, which lost its role as a space superpower after the collapse of the USSR, undermining American satellite infrastructure would be a way to even the playing field in a future Space War I, as Forbes calls it. Moscow pays special attention to the Starlink system, which ensures stable communication between the armed forces of Ukraine, the governing bodies and civil services of Ukraine. Russia is already attacking Starlink ground terminals, and now, according to Forbes, it may move on to attacking the satellite group itself. Since the start of its full-scale invasion of Ukraine, Russia has already launched a cyber attack on the American satellite operator Viasat. That took out thousands of ground terminals, disrupting troop command and communications. But its next move could be far more devastating. NATO Secretary-General Mark Rutte recently admitted that Russia is conducting subversive activities against the West, including sabotage and cyber attacks. The alliance is strengthening intelligence coordination and protecting critical infrastructure. However, as Forbes notes, the West has not yet taken a single direct response to Russia's sabotage. The main danger is that the explosion of the satellite can be presented as an accident. The Kremlin will get a powerful effect, but will avoid responsibility. This is the new philosophy of Russian aggression: strikes without a flag, where it is almost impossible to prove the culprit. Since the beginning of the war in Ukraine, Russia has carried out numerous acts of sabotage in Europe, from explosions to drone attacks and hacking operations. Now, apparently, sabotage goes beyond the Earth, and an orbital nuclear explosion may be used. If a nuclear device is detonated in space, it will cause a cascading destruction of Western satellites, including communication systems, GPS, intelligence, and even financial transactions. This will disrupt navigation, banking, the internet, and will be a blow not only to the army, but to the entire global infrastructure.